The media has a tendency of misrepresenting things, from scandals to politics, all the way to epidemics. Through medical research and media's representation of its findings, society has undergone a paradigm shift in the way HIV and AIDS is understood. Now, although medical research is obviously very important in the understanding of HIV and AIDS, today I'm going to focus on media and its effects on society. At the time when the crisis first arose, people turned to newspapers, television, magazines, radio to get their information on the disease. But unfortunately, for the first gruesome 5 years since the epidemic arose, media caused a negative and homophobic, violent reaction amongst the public due to its poor and inaccurate representation of the disease. I mean, can you believe this? Thankfully, though, in 1985, this all changed when the media started to change, and subsequently the public's perception did as well. To start off, Hollywood film star Rock Hudson passed away from AIDS in 1985. This was the first time the media represented a sufferer of AIDS as a sympathetic loss, as opposed to an aggressive invader of health, which is what many people thought at the time. 2 years later, Manhattan woke up to their city being covered with the phrase, "Silence equals death." This was the start of the organization ACT UP, which fought for the justice of those suffering from AIDS who were too scared to speak up for themselves. The leader of this nonprofit, Larry Kramer, used riots, parades, and anything to grab attention in order to force the media to represent the illness on their terms and nobody else's, so that no more false information could be spread. That same year, a photograph of Princess Diana shaking hands with an AIDS patient without gloves on surfaced all over the press. This showed that there was no harm in having skin-to-skin contact with someone who had contracted the disease. Now that the public knew they weren't in imminent danger, they were able to fight with the AIDS patients, not against them. Then, in 1991, Magic Johnson revealed at a press conference that he was HIV positive. This shattered the stereotype that many had for AIDS patients at the time. Before, people thought those suffering from AIDS were relatively poor, homosexual, drug addict men. But Magic, being a wealthy, heterosexual black pro basketball player, proved that all wrong. And he very quickly became the friendly face associated with HIV, being featured on magazines, newspapers, television, documentaries, and more. The conversation about HIV and AIDS truly opened up once he did. And since then, there have been many more accurate media representations of the disease. For example, the musical Rent, I know, great show, featured 4 characters who have HIV or AIDS and openly discuss it. The MTV reality show Real World starred a man named Pedro Zamora who openly discussed having AIDS. It was known to be the one who humanized the disease at the time. And more recently, the movie Dallas Buyers Club, starring Matthew McConaughey, tells the real-life story of a man named Ron Woodruff and his battles with HIV and the healthcare system. All of these accurate and educational media representations of the disease have caused a societal shift in the way HIV and AIDS is understood by the public. For example, nowadays we have AIDS being taught in sex ed classes across the country. We have movies and documentaries still being made about the disease to this day. There are brochures everywhere, posters, you name it. And in many universities, including Penn State, there's free HIV testing for all. And all of this shows that the public is getting informed about the disease as opposed to being ignorant as they once were before. And now, why is this important? Well, now we can learn from this and apply it to the next time an epidemic occurs. Because, as we know, history repeats itself, and we don't want the pain and suffering many incurred due to fake news on top of the AIDS disease to happen ever again. Thank you.